Purusha,
la personne.
personne.
Atmanam,
Atmanam,
réalisation de soi.
ce soir.
Réalisation de soi.
Réaliser de soi.
Na,
Non,
n'a pas.
n'a pas.
Alabudate,
Abadodoté.
le prend sérieusement et comprend.
J'ai pas compris.
Ok, Adwini. When one enters the post of being the head of the government, one cannot understand the meaning of self-realization. Knowing this, Yati, the eldest son of Nahusha, did not accept the power to rule, although it was offered by his father. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Self-realization is the prime objective of human civilization, and it is regarded seriously by those who are situated in the mode of goodness and have developed the Brahmanical qualities. Kshatriyas are generally endowed with material qualities conducive to gaining material wealth and enjoying sense gratification. But those who are spiritually advanced are not interested in material opulence. Instead, they accept only the bare necessities for a life of spiritual advancement and self-realization. It is specifically mentioned here that if one enters political life, especially in the modern day, one loses the chance for human perfection. Nonetheless, one can attain the highest perfection if one hears Srimad Bhagavatam. This hearing is described as Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Maharaj Parikshit was involved in politics, but because at the end of his life he heard Srimad Bhagavatam from Sukadev Goswami, attained perfection very easily. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore suggested Stadishtita Shukhigatam Tanuvan Manobhir Ye Praya Shujita Jito Piyashita Srilokyam. Regardless of whether one is in the mode of passion, ignorance, or goodness, if one regularly hears Srimad Bhagavatam from the self-realized souls, one is freed from the bondage of material involvement and of the purpose. Om Madhyana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militanyena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Kadhamayam Dadati Sampadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Padakamanam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Shachipam Sadvetam Savdhutam Parijana Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padanam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Sajivam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati Gopisha Gokakanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapcha Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaurabhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we are reading from chapter 18, the beginning of the chapter. context is that King Nahusha wanted his eldest son, Yati, to inherit the throne, but Yati did refuse. So he did refuse because he was disturbed, or he was worried that if he becomes involved with political involvement, political duties, then he will lose his spiritual interests, actually. So the great kings, actually, in the ancient times, they were not ordinary rulers. They were actually very trained in Vedic culture. They were God conscious. So King Nahusha, he wanted his eldest son to inherit the throne, but he didn't want. But it's not ordinary refusal. It's actually it was philosophical intelligence. Because he was worried that if he gains some power, then it will hamper his self-realization. Because self-realization requires humility, and by gaining power, by becoming a king, then he will not gain. Maybe he was in fear that by this power he will not become humble, and that will hamper his spiritualization. And because self-realization requires also simplicity, detachment from self-gratification, we have this verse in Bhagavad Gita saying, Bhaktaishvarya prashaktatman taya pahirteshetasham yavashayitnika buddhi samadhona vidhiyate. If one is infested by material opulence and desire for prestige, then he cannot obtain self-realization. So it is clearly mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita that if we become influenced by material prestige and also opulence, then we cannot attain self-realization. And so then Yati was King Yati, he was in fear that because of this material opulence and prestige, he would not obtain self-realization, which is actually vilified, things like that, in one way. And because self-realization also requires detachment from sense gratification, then he didn't want to be influenced by that. And self-realization also requires time for hearing and chanting. And so when one is engaged sometimes in power, rulers or political or management, then maybe it can hamper his time for hearing and chanting, which can be dangerous. And because political power also requires constant management, then the brain becomes disturbed sometimes. We cannot even hear and chant properly because we are always worried about others, we are always worried about the task. So it's become maybe sometimes difficult to chant and hear. And it also requires control over others, because management requires to manage others, and that can be dangerous also. Sometimes we gain some prestige, which can be also dangerous for spiritual life. And so it can increase the identification with the body and the position, because we will identify more with the position and therefore with the body. And Prabhupada said that power increases false ego. So this is dangers that are here in this position. That's why King Yayati, he refused. Because more we think that I am the leader, I am indispensable, I am important, then, and the more one forgets that I am a servant of Krishna, then it can So, Nikai Seti Sutaki,
Jai.
Madaparishi Swaraki, Jai, Kanada Radev Subhata Maharaniki, Jai. And so he was in fear that maybe if I accept something very nice, then this I may gain the world, but I will lose my soul. This is what he was thinking actually. And this renunciation is based on knowledge, jnana vairagya. So. So that's why it's very important to have a balance in that. That doesn't mean that we have to give up our position, but it's very important that we have a balance. It doesn't mean that that we should not accept position of leaders or devotees cannot manage, or that Krishna consciousness means irresponsibility, because we also have other personalities in the Srimad Bhagavatam like Maharaj Yudhishthir, King Parikshit, Lord Ramachandra. And what's the difference between them is that they actually ruled as servants of Krishna. That's the difference, rather than enjoying the powers. So that is sometimes can be a fine line between both. So that's why it's very important to always train ourselves as servants of Krishna. And it's also important to, as much as possible, increase our hearing and chanting, so that we always remember that we are a servant of Krishna, because the holy name is meant for that. And when we hear, we also hear that in our scriptures, to remember, to realize that we are servants of Krishna. So the chanting and hearing is very important, because this verse today speaks about actually power, how power can be dangerous, and then it speaks about the importance of hearing, because actually both goes in one coin. Like when we have more power, then we have to also increase our chanting and hearing, which because sometimes is very difficult, because we have more sometimes more responsibilities, more services comes, and then it decreases. But somehow there is some ways to do it. Like I know some devotees that whenever they have so much service, but from the time they wake up, they play Srila Prabhupada tape. Whatever they do, they have 5-10 minutes, they play Prabhupada tape. They do some service, they play Prabhupada tape. So even sometimes we can find some ways to hear, so that even we can still always have the hearing in our mind. And so there is some let's say question application we can ask ourselves in order to always introspect and see if that power is making us proud. So the questions are: do I crave position in the temple, or any other places, not necessarily in the temple? And do I want recognition for myself from that activities, services that I'm doing from these positions? Do I become disturbed when my authority is questioned? Meaning that, when I receive feedbacks, when I, some people may come and critique, so how do I feel? Do I feel like, oh, I am this person, why he's saying this, or do I question myself? And the last question is, do I neglect chanting and hearing to do some other important duties? Because hearing and chanting is important duties. So Prabhupada said actually in one class that management is required but is not the goal. So we should always remember what's the goal, that we are a servant of Krishna, that we are practicing all these activities to purify ourselves, to remember that we are a servant of Krishna. So if power reduce our chanting, reduce our humility, and increases our criticism towards others, etc., then it means something is wrong in that. It's not favorable for our bhakti. So, and we see actually in nowadays, it's like we see that in our modern days we have so much rulers which are in this verse, which is described by Bhagavad Gita, they are influenced by material position and material opulence, and what is the result is chaos in the world. So actually more one which has power is influenced by these defects, then the citizens who are following these persons will also be infested by this bad effects of power. So, and then it creates that the citizens now we see people are more anxious, more unhappy, more depressed, more just empty actually from inside. And this is because of the rulers actually. The rulers were God conscious, then the population will be God conscious. Yeah. So I wanted to speak also about the power of hearing. Just a few points about hearing in general. So the first point is from who we should hear. Who should hear actually? Who should hear the topic of Krishna? And it is described that in Bhagavad Gita that these people who are actually pious, distressed, inquisitive, or wise are receptive to the topics of Krishna. And but even those who want wealth, reputation, enjoyment, liberation, influence, they are also eligible. So for example, when I came to Krishna consciousness, I came to Mayapur and I was hearing Srimad Bhagavatam class. And I was like, oh my god, what they are talking about? I was completely like, bewildered by all these Sanskrit words and what he's saying. I was thinking they are crazy. And but somehow I got purified, right? But actually it is important to give people what is digestible for what they can hear, because otherwise people get in fear of what they hear, because I got in fear. I was thinking this is too elevated topics, and then I didn't come back actually for a very long time. But that's why it's very important to always give contents for beginners with digestible. Sometimes it's even better to not invite them for some classes which are like on Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam topic, which is maybe too difficult. Then inviting them and then they come and they get like, wow, what is this, and never come back. So it's better to invite them to some classes which is for beginners. Now we have so much programs going on, this Gita Life starting in March, I believe. So if you like to subscribe, some hearings are online, or some people who wants to subscribe, it's a nice opportunity for beginners. So we should also not preach something. It is also said in the 10 offenses that we should not preach to the faceless. So this means that we should not preach something that is too high for the person to digest. This is offensive actually. So we should always preach what others in front of us can digest, that is digestible. And according to the consciousness of the person, he will understand the matter. So, meaning that many people can come in the same Srimad Bhagavatam class, but what they will retain from the class is completely different from the person next. Sometimes it's very interesting to go to people who went to the Srimad Bhagavatam class and you ask the person, so what did you hear about the class? And the conclusion from the person is so different from everyone, because Krishna is so personal, and he wants also sometimes to say something different to a person, and the person may hear something different than the other person because it was for that person. But it also depends on the attention of the person. More person will be in a rapt attention for the topic, then more she can hear, more she can digest more and more from the class. And So the second one is whom should we hear from? So we have this verse in the Bhagavad Gita. Evam parampara praptam evam vashivishuru sakalehena mahata. Yes, so that's someone which is in the disciplic succession and following the four readings principle, chanting 16 rounds, especially for people who goes to Vrindavan. We have so much katha going on, but we actually don't know who is this person, so we have to be careful from whom we are hearing, because actually this hearing is very important because it is going in the heart of the person. And so if we hear from a person which is infested in her heart and is representing something which is not bona fide, then it goes into our heart, and it's very difficult to overcome this because it's like some virus who come and come in the heart and doesn't want to go. And so it's very important. Of course, here we are protected when we are in our temples, ISKCON temples. Prabhupada is so nice. He put these rules for us so that we are actually protected by this fence. But when we go outside, we see very quickly that, wow, there's so many dangers, especially when we go to holy places also. And I just wanted to read something from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is quite famous in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Maybe you can put it on here or not? Maybe we can read it together because it's really nice to read it. It's second chapter, first canto, from the beginning. You know, it's beginning by Srimvatam Sarva Kata Krishna
1 to 17.
Second chapter?
17 to 17. 1 to 17.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe it's 18.
These verses, when I was in Soho Street in London, all the brahmachari who join, they have to learn them all by heart. And so they recite them every day, because it's actually very, very important verses that are setting the mood of devotional life and hearing about Krishna and the importance of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam.
Harini. It became English. Okay.
Yeah. So Srimvatam Kata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vidyantastu Harini Vidhunoti Surishatam Nashta Pravishu Abhadrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishiki Tadashrajastamo Bhava Kamarubhadayashayi Shetaiterana Vidham Shitram Sattve Prashidati Evam Prashanamanashu Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata Bhagavatadva Vigyanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate Vidyate Hridaya Granti Shrityanti Sarva Samshaya Shriyante Shashya Karmani Drishta Evatminashvare. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the mode of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of Asham Shayam Samagram, understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead. So this is very, very nice actually to hear that every day, because it is reminding us how important it is to hear. We have this list of devotional service, how to perform devotional service, and it's beginning by Svalanam Kirtanam, Archanam, Pada Sevanam. And the first one is to hear actually. So means is the most important one. When we chant, of course, we know that we have to hear, and how this whole universe started is also by material vibration. So this hearing vibration is so powerful, so strong. And remember, His Holiness Jayanta Maharaj, he came to New Mayapur and he gave recently a class. He said that in a temple we should always have hearing going on, meaning that even if there is no class, there should be always tape of Prabhupada Mahamatra playing constantly 24 hours, because this power of hearing is so powerful that it's purify the atmosphere and purify anyone who comes inside. Even sometimes there is a guest coming in, there is no one to welcome, or he gets purified just by hearing this tape. And in London also they do something actually in the kitchen of Govinda's restaurant. They never stop kirtan playing there. 24 hours is going on. Even when they go to sleep, the kirtan never stops. So they leave this tape going on 24 hours. So that they actually always the environment is purified. And it's true, when you come in the kitchen, the level of, you can feel the environment is very, very high. And anyone who comes in the kitchen feels so inspired to do service just by this constant playing of Harikatha, of Kirtan, of the Mahamantra. So yeah, sometimes, and now also in New Mayapur they put this Prabhupada tape, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, always, all day, so that it's also decrease the desire to speak. To say sometimes, we have this desire sometimes while we are cooking or doing something, to say something which is not really necessary. And so by this tape, it reminds the devotee, okay, just chanting and hearing and doing service. So this is very, very nice, I found, to always try to increase hearing and chanting in temples like that. So there is also another question about hearing we can speak about, is how to hear. So when we come also to the class or we hear some topics, we need to have the right mood of hearing, a submissive mood, meaning actually when one comes to the class and when one gives the class, they both need to come in a certain mood, and this mood has to be in a mood of prayers, meaning that if the speakers comes in the mood of prayer, that please Krishna, let me say something which is bona fide and something that can purify me and purify others, and when the hearer also comes in and he is also in the mood of prayers, that please Krishna, let me hear something that is also will enlighten my heart and also enthuse me in my devotional service, then something happened there, that both, actually there's a channel happening, and so Krishna is actually saying something to the person who's hearing. And there is some qualities that I heard from Her Grace Vishaka Mataji expressed that one should have when he hears topics about Krishna. And these topics are attention, humility, sincerity, seriousness, curiosity, eagerness, patience, gratitude, thoughtfulness, persistence, great and abiding faith, and a service attitude. So when one has these qualities, when he hears about Krishna, then the hearing becomes more and more prominent and becomes more and more effective, and actually it comes in, because we see like King Parikshit, he renounced everything, and then he hears Srimad Bhagavatam at the end of his life, for these 7 days. So this is shows the importance of hearing, because this is it set example for us, because he was, why he was doing that, because he was dying, no, but we are also dying. The time 7 days doesn't mean anything, because it's actually for him it's 7 days, but his 7 days may be our like 1,000 days or 10,000 days, or maybe 7 days also. So we know that the time in Krishna consciousness is not so important, meaning that we don't know when we die actually. So this it creates. We hear Srimad Bhagavatam actually because the goal is that we create this emergency state within ourselves, that whatever happens, I have to hear about Krishna. Even if I sleep late, even if I have to do this and that, even I sleep at 11 o'clock, I still have to wake up at 4 o'clock and come to the morning program and hear about Krishna. Whatever happens, I have to make it as my priority in life. This should be the number one. And from like Prabhupada also, he said this example, like he was traveling all over the world, but wherever he is, even if there is some difference of timing, he would always wake up and comes to the Srimad Bhagavatam class and hear. And even if he has to have 2 hours sleep, 3 hours sleep, and then of course we can always sleep later, but we have to have this lifestyle that we are always be hearing. And especially I notice this can be so dangerous when we become pujaris, because for example myself, I have now more pujari series which has 8 a.m. in the Srimad Bhagavatam class, and I notice that many times I don't give importance to this hearing, because I have then, the days goes on then when you don't hear in the morning, and you have many services and the night comes, and then you can, of course reading is there, but still the Harikatha hearing was not sometimes prominent, so sometimes we can spend 1 day, 2 days without hearing, and this on the long term can be dangerous. So that's also reminding for me that Krishna is saying that we should never lose that hearing. We should always make it in our schedule as a service. Like, okay, I have pujari, I have this and that, and then okay, this time 1 hour is for hearing. So like that. Maybe we can have some discussion now, I think, because we are not so many. We can just have maybe some, if you have some reflection about hearing, how can we hear better, and yeah.
A good reminder, very nice meditation on the shlokas. That actually some Bhagavatam speakers, they recite it constantly before the class and so. But to enter the mood indeed. And yeah, before coming, I was hearing a short about, because we are doing all of this sometimes mechanically, but the ultimate goal is to awaken love. And I heard from Keshava Swami that actually if you put action, attention, and intention, then love will come, like quickly, let's say. And if you don't manage after so many years of practice to increase, not that you are acting already, but if you don't feel your love increasing, then it means there is one defect in one of the three, or maybe the three of them. So action, attention, intention. So powerful. And also, now it's been you are the second person mentioning within few days that we should put a tape of Prabhupada all day long in the temple. I took it definitely as instruction. I took it firstly from Rajeshwari Mataji, who is suing for the deities, and when she stayed here to sue some wonderful outfits for Nityananda Trayadashi, she said that why there is no Prabhupada japa in the morning in the temple room. So it's true, we should still ourselves chant, and our chanting should be higher, we should hear our own chanting, but still Prabhupada chanting is very important for us, even if it's a little bit on the background. And this two last, like today and yesterday, yesterday. I could actually practice with devotees online, and we put Srila Prabhupada's japa, and I just realized, yes, we should do it once more. It's very powerful to be in an association of Srila Prabhupada by hearing his voice, and especially we take responsibilities in the management. We should be more and more actually serious with our sadhana of hearing and chanting. That's for sure. And if you don't have that, then you are not in a proper mood. You cannot serve properly the community in this process. So, thank you for the reminder.
Okay, so
Someone gave a comment here. I think that would be nirvana, the death of the ego. What else? The little death, as you French say.
What would be, what it mean, the death of the ego?
What makes it a question?
I think that would be nirvana, the death of the ego.
Or it's a comment?
It's a comment.
Actually, I can read something really nice. It's from Lord Brahma in the third canto. It's short. And he was saying, "Oh my Lord, your devotees can see you through the ears, by the process of bona fide hearing, and thus the heart becomes cleansed. And you take your seat there. You are so merciful to your devotees that you manifest yourself in the particular eternal forms of transcendence in which they always think of you." I find this very beautiful prayers because he's saying that we can see through to actually hearing. It's not by seeing. So, yeah, it's amazing. Okay, thank you so much. Sorry.
No, j'ai écouté.
Okay. Thank you so much for your kind attention, and please forgive me if I said something which was not modified. Hare Krishna. Shila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.